6:32 p.m. This is a regular session of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Today is January 6th, 2025. Happy New Year, everybody. We do have a full house. All commissioners are present. The next item is introduction and format of hearing. Please take that away.
Good evening, everyone. First, we'll have a call to order, followed by a staff report, and then an applicant presentation. Then the public comments in support or opposition will be open. Please state your name and address for the record, and please be brief to the point within a 3-minute time frame. Then the commission and staff will have a discussion, and the commission will vote to recommend approval as presented, approval with conditions, denial of the request, or to table the item. City Council's consideration of the zone change tonight will be on the Monday, January 27th, 2025 meeting. Thank you.
All right, the next item is the consent agenda, and I have a conflict with a couple of the items, so I'm just going to step out for all of them and let Commissioner Eisenberg, the Vice Chair, take over. And I believe...
Yeah, I too am going to be stepping out. I have a conflict with C, D, and E, so I too will be stepping out.
All right. There's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us now. All right. On the consent agenda, I'll entertain a motion to approve in a second.
Excuse me, Chair. I believe one of the items on the consent agenda actually has to be pulled from the consent agenda, and that's going to be item E, like Edward. So if you want to introduce items A through D with the exclusion of E.
I'll make a motion to introduce items A through D and pull item E for consideration at a future date or elsewhere on the agenda.
It'll be immediately after.
Immediately after. Make a motion.
Second, Commissioner Echols.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Do we have anyone wishing to discuss any of the consent agenda A through D? Hearing none. All those in favor, sign by raising your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Approved 5-0. That brings us to E, and I understand that we're going to get walked through this.
Yes, sir.
Staff will handle that.
Thank you. Senior Planner Florence Buaku will be providing the staff presentation.
Thank you, Katja. Good evening, Chair and members of the Commission. This item is a preliminary plat for the enclave at Massey Oaks, and it's being pulled from the consent agenda because there's a conflict in the information on ownership for the property. This property is located south of Old Massey Ranch Road. It's proposed for a single-family rental development, and it's part of the Massey Oaks PD. On the screen is the proposed plat, and staff is recommending approval with a condition that the ownership information or the discrepancy with the ownership will be addressed at the final plat. Thank you. That concludes staff report.
Apologies, I just want to make sure. I thought that there was also an easement that needed to be changed. I thought I heard that earlier. It may have already been resolved.
The easement that will be changed was noted in the staff report, but not a recommendation.
Okay, so it'll be changed at time of final plat. It doesn't have to be here. And on this one, it's just because the final plat reflects, I can't read that small print that's on the screen, but it's the former ownership group for Massey Oaks, not the current ownership group. And then that's also what is listed in the agenda. BGE is the applicant, but it is not on behalf of Massey Oaks Development LP owner. It is Massey Oaks Build to Rent Communities, I think. And Mr. Lang's going to give us the proper ownership information.
No, Mike. There we go. Good evening, Chair, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. My name is Andrew Lang with BGE. That was an oversight on our part. I apologize to the commission and staff for the error there, but the correct ownership group, and we are the applicant on behalf of Massey Oaks BTR LLC, which is a separate developer, separate and apart from Massey Oaks Development LP. And I'm available if you have any other questions.
Okay. I'm assuming that that'll suffice as a applicant presentation.
Yes, sir. And
Okay.
we would just say, we would recommend whoever makes the motion to make the motion to approve the preliminary plat on the condition that the ownership interest be reflected to reflect, the ownership interest be reflected accurately. There we go.
We've got that on the next slide.
Apologies.
All right, then I will entertain a motion in a second. Does
Commissioner
anybody want to try that one?
Commissioner Eccles, I will make the motion that we accept the plat with the recommendation of the staff of changing the name to the correct name.
I'll take a second.
Commissioner McDonald, second.
All right, I have a first and a second. We've already had the staff report, and what about the,
It's a preliminary plat, so there is not a public hearing that's necessary.
all right, so we don't have to go through all
Correct.
that. All right, so does anyone wish to discuss this? Seeing no discussion, everybody in favor, sign by raising your right hand. All those opposed, same sign, passes 5-0.
Thank you all. Let the record reflect that myself and Ms. Jennifer Ordino have returned. Next item, well, is removal of items from the consent agenda. I'm sure y'all have taken care of that.
Yes, sir, we did.
So then we'll go to new business, and we have one item. Consideration possible action. It's a zone change application, Zone 24-19. And this is a request by Mr. Will Benson, applicant on behalf of JM Projects LLC, the owner, for approval of a zone change for 7.573 acres of land from heavy industrial, or M2, district to general commercial, GC district, and the general location being northwest corner of Main Street and Bailey Road. How about a motion for approval and a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
All right, then next item is staff report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Patrick Bauer will be providing the staff report on this item.
Thank you, Katja. Good evening, Chair and members of the Commission. As mentioned, the request before you tonight is for a zone change from the M2 Heavy Industrial Zoning District to the GC General Commercial Zoning District. And the applicant's intent is to rezone the property to allow for commercial uses that complement the area, specifically close to that intersection at Main Street and Bailey Road. To date, staff has not received any comments in support or against the request. And here we get a look first at kind of an aerial and the zoning of the property. As mentioned, it's in the M2 Heavy Industrial. And we have that same zoning to the north and the west of the property. And then to the east and the south of the property is the General Commercial Zoning District. Here we get a look at the future land use of the property and those place types. And so predominantly the subject property is within the commercial center place type. And then there's some small portions in that southwest corner that are a part of the business park and the mixed use center place type. And kind of looking at another aerial view of the property here, you can get a good view that it's mostly a wooded lot right now that's been undeveloped. And kind of surrounding it is Pearland High School. Across Main Street to the east, we have some undeveloped land to the south, There's more undeveloped land to the west, which is owned by Pearland ISD. Then there's a driveway to the north, which is actually a part of the ISD property, which this industrial development gets its access from down there. And a little bit of history on the property. It was originally annexed into the city in 1972 and is currently undeveloped as shown in the aerial, and it is not platted. It's looking at some of the review criteria. As mentioned, the place type of the property is the commercial center, and the GC district is compatible with that commercial center place type. In terms of the thoroughfare plan, the subject property has frontage along Main Street, which is a major thoroughfare with sufficient width. And at the time of platting, right-of-way dedication will be reviewed to see if there needs to be any or if it had already been dedicated. In terms of the UDC, the property is currently undeveloped, so there's no nonconformity pertaining to any structures. But if approved, the subject property will be required to meet the GC zoning district requirements. And in terms of utilities, the property has access to water and sewer along Main Street. And so looking at the approval criteria for a zone change, as mentioned, criteria 1 pertains to consistency with the future land use map. As mentioned, the commercial center place type does support and is consistent with the requested GC district. In terms of the proposed zoning change in relation to surrounding properties, while we see some heavy industrial zoning to the north and to the west, there also is that same GC zoning district to the east and the south, as well as the property does have frontage along Main Street and is within proximity to that major intersection between two major thoroughfares, which is Main Street and Bailey Road. And so thus, the requested GC district meets the approval criteria for a zone change, and therefore staff recommends approval of the proposed zone change. And that concludes staff's report.
Thank you, sir. Great report as always. Is the applicant present, and does the applicant wish to make a presentation?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is Will Benson with Benson Development, P.O. Box 3, League City, Texas. Yes, when we first approached staff about the zone change for this, we looked at the future land use map. Patrick, would it be possible to go back to the future land use? There we go, perfect. So as we looked at this in the current zoning, which was M2, we looked at the future land use, and it does make sense from a future land use plan or the UDC to rezone this to general commercial. So our intent is to move this forward into uses that are more appropriate for general commercial than for M2 zoning. And so we appreciate your support for this measure. Any questions? I'm here.
Thank you. And we can't dialogue now, of course, but we can hear shortly. So that concludes your applicant presentation. We'll move forward then to persons wishing to speak for or against. Is there anyone wishing to speak for or against? Seeing no movement, we'll move then to staff, commission, applicant discussion. Who wants to go first? Trey, you want to start on that end?
I'm in favor of this. I like the idea of that becoming more of a general commercial versus M2, being that it's across from the high school.
I just say that I think, I've been on the record before about our limited amount of industrial property in the city, and we're not going to get more industrial. But the fact that Pearland ISD owns this property and they're not in any mood to sell their property anytime soon, I think GC is a good use for it and works with the area. So
I too will be supporting this, but my reasons are it's right across from the high school, and that's one of the things that I've always that entire stretch of land in there. We took a lot of flack for approving the residential on down the road there, and the reason that I was for approving it and stuff is because they talk about everything that can happen, but we've got over 3,000 kids. I think it's something like 3,800 kids over there in that school. And God forbid anything happen. And for us to allow something to go in there to where we could have a spill or something like that, that would jeopardize those young people's lives is to me is almost criminal on our part. So I've always been for getting away from industrial right there in that area. Now further down, I'm total agreement, but right there in that area right there, I've always been against it, and I think this is a good fit. And not only that, we did a comprehensive plan. It's future land use. We looked at it. We're going through some of that stuff right now, looking at it, and if why do these exercises if we're not going to pay attention to what the citizens say? So I'll be behind it 100%.
Thank you. I'm in agreement as well. I wish that you all were changing the zoning all the way up to this road. I'm assuming that the property line doesn't hit the road, so that's not an option, but it sure would be nice to zone it accordingly. Since we do have the neighborhood to the south and to the little bit to the, I guess, southwest, I think this is a good fit. The land has been changed to residential. Y'all make a great point about the high school being across the street. I'll keep this very short. In 1994 to 1997, I came into Pearland with the company that I worked for at the time, and we looked at industrial land. It was an industrial process. We looked at all the industrial land, and I remember distinctly my boss, when we got back, the owner of the company actually, when we sat around the table and said, we looked at 4 or 5 sites, and he said, we looked at a couple of these in the general area. There's no way I'm going to be on Channel 13 News when one of my trucks, 220, 230, when the kids get out and they're not thinking about driving, they're thinking about getting home or going down the street to a friend's house or with their girlfriend, what have you. They're going to pull out and one of my trucks is going to hit them. And I just made Channel 13 News, and, God help the child, but the business has gone, completely under as well. So, to validate y'all's points, that's what some of the business owners were thinking as well. The timing is right for this change. I think had you come in 3 years ago, 5 years ago, I think we would have had a lot more reservation, but I think the timing is now. So I'll be for it. If there's no further comments, then we have a motion and a second on the table. So all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. I see 7 hands up, so no need to ask for those opposed. Measure passes 7-0. So that brings us then to discussion items. City Council update report.
Thank you, Chair. So there have been a couple items that were on this previous council agenda. First of which was the first reading for Ordino 2 Massey Oaks update. That got approved with a 4-1 vote. So they will have second reading for that coming up next Monday on the 13th. Then there were 2 conditional use permits. The first of which was that Learning Arts Place, the lady that did the arts teaching. I don't have a better word for it. Drawing and art and all of those.
288 office condos?
Yeah, in that area. That got approved with no additional conditions on a 5-0 vote. Then there was the auto self-service wash there at Magnolia and Manville, just next door to Elation, the apartment complex that's being built. Council agreed wholeheartedly with y'all on the 7 proposed conditions and approved with those conditions on a 6-0 vote. A couple other items that aren't necessarily zone changes or CUPs, but they'll be of importance coming up. We did get approval on the annexation for MUD 16. So that is Oak Road and Avalon Terrace. Avalon Terrace. Right? That area. So we'll be following up in the coming months with zoning for those properties as they are in the city limits as of December 31st at 11:59. Just fun little facts there in case anyone was wondering. Also, council approved awarding a contract to Baxter Woodman to update the Parks Master Plan. It's not necessarily a plan that y'all will see, but it's a plan that interacts with the comprehensive plan and helps inform us when we're looking at acquiring more property for parkland or doing improvements that y'all hear in the capital improvements program. Last bit of information that I want to share with P&Z is we have a member of staff that is leaving. So Ms. Florence Block, who is taking a new position. I know y'all have all dealt and listened to her presentations and gotten to hear her wisdom over the past couple of years. So Florence, I'll leave it to you to close it out.
I know, Santa, but well, thank you very much. It's been an amazing 5.5 years here, and it's just time to move forward to other things. And so this coming Friday would be my last day with the city. And this will be my last P&Z as well. So thank you all.
Thank you,
Can
Florence.
you mention where you're going, or is that too personal?
I'll be joining the Harris County Environmental Health Department. So I'll be the urban planner within that department.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Well, we'll definitely miss you. If that concludes the the city council update report section, the commissioner's activity report. Anybody have anything to say or add?
Look, I'm gonna apologize to y'all because I got something to say. Number one, I think that this body right here does their homework. I think we go out there and we go look at things, and I mean we go over and above. We don't sit there, and I know that a lot of us. I know I've heard Tommy say that he took a trip out there and looked at the piece of property, and I think most of us do that type of stuff. I've heard people say, well, you're supposed to zone the dirt. Well, no, I disagree with that. It's not just about zoning the dirt. It's about planning on what is coming down the pike. It's listening to what the citizens said, when we do these comprehensive plans, when we look at future land use. You've got to tie all of that together in order to make an informed decision. I'm not going to mention any names or anything like that, but I worry about some other people that vote that have a say in that. Do they put the same type of work into it? And I feel like that I've had people say, well, we hate to go against P&Z. Well, the only reason that they don't want to go against P&Z if it meets their agenda. And I know that we have differences of opinions and such as that. And I know that our opinions, sometimes we're not privy to what another body's, they have more information a lot of times than we do. And I try to respect that. But I just want to make sure that and I know that some of them are probably listening. I want them to take into consideration that comprehensive plan, the future land use. I want them to take those things into consideration when we sit there and we vote on something. Most of us, I feel like, have done their homework and thought about what we're doing. If it was just nothing but zoning the dirt, we wouldn't need a P&Z commission. It would be a rubber stamp. And And I feel like that, this city a long time ago decided that they wanted to have a planning and zoning committee to help with the building of this city. And I'm not saying we always get it right, but I think we get it right more times than not. So that's all I got to say. I've had a kind of a bee in my bonnet for the last couple of weeks over it, and I didn't want to stir up a big mess, but I just want other people to take the same type of consideration and the same type of effort that we do when it comes to these things. And I know that another group that is, God help them, because they're loaded and they work harder than anybody I've ever seen in my life. To be a part of that that council is, people said that, well, they only meet twice a week. No, those people are meeting all the time. They are dedicated citizens, but I want them to be informed. I want them to know what they're voting on, and I feel like sometimes some of them don't. Thank you.
I want to make sure legal doesn't get me in trouble here or stop me if I step off here.
I do my best to give grace and latitude when I can. I think that if you're going to respond to something that Commissioner Eisenberg said, you're probably getting really into a discussion about something that's not on the agenda.
Okay. Could we have an agenda item to discuss some of these things? And mine in particular was the comprehensive plan itself and our participation in the comprehensive plan as it was being formulated and adopted.
Well, I think that we could always talk about the role of the P&Z or your duties and have a future item on an agenda that talks about what those things are, whether that be based on the city charter, whether that be based on state law or based on the Unified Development Code. And, as we talk about your role in the organization, I think that especially what you're talking about, Commissioner Eisenberg, would be in there. And then what I hear you saying would also be in there, Chair Fuertes.
Yeah, and mine was just a response to some of the comments that were made during a workshop about how, trying not to say what I was going to say, but I think the comment made during a workshop was, well, we have a comprehensive plan. Why don't we, we should follow it type thing. And I just wanted to make a comment about some of the process that we went through. So,
and I would just suggest that the commissioner activity report is really for something that you have done. Yes. That would be your activity in the community in relation to planning and zoning. So we should probably keep our comments about the commissioner activity report to those types of events.
All right. So that being said, then the next regular meeting, planning and zoning meeting, is January 21st. I'm assuming we do not have a workshop then this month. I'm seeing kind of, yeah. So,
I think we should remind everybody that January 21st is a Tuesday. You might be coming up on Monday, MLK Day, it's a holiday. You may find yourself alone or standing in the parking lot with somebody else.
Waiting for the parade.
And then you can be early for the meeting that is on Tuesday, January 21st.
Thank you for that, because I didn't put it together. Appreciate it. So next Tuesday is our next meeting. Does anybody know that they cannot be here or will not be here? All right. Then we look forward to seeing you then. Everybody be safe. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, it is, for the record, it is 7 o'clock even.